Hi, I'm John Maguire, founder and director of the Kinesiology Institute. Thank you for tuning into this video. And be sure to subscribe to our channel and click the bell to be notified when we post new content. And go to kinesiologyinstitute.com to learn more about applied kinesiology. Welcome back. So we're going to talk a little bit about going through these various points, and I'm going to show you some self-testing as well to balance whatever's out on you. But we're going to cover everything, so we're going to get in depth, so you're going to know where's that meridian begin, where's it end, where's exactly that neurolymphatic point, those vasculars. These are the energy switches that really bring us into balance. So let me just give you a little background of Goodheart. And by the way, I've got a new book coming out. If you're interested in getting it, send me email saying, I want the book, and I'll send you a free copy of it. It's getting close to completion. I'm really excited about it. And so I talk about how Goodheart developed all this. It was so exciting. I'm sitting in a classroom at the feet of the master, and he says, you know, here's how I figured this out, and here's how I did that. And so I share a lot of that in the book. So he had this guy come in first that was actually a sort of like a delivery. He delivered the vitamins to his office. He was like a UPS kind of delivery guy. And he said, Doc, I've got this problem with my shoulder, and I'm not able to pass this exam to get a better job at the auto factories. Goodheart was in Detroit, Michigan. And he looked and he saw one of his scapula was protruding in the back. And he says, that sounds like a inhibited or weak anterior serratus. And so he just had gotten a book for his Christmas present. I mean, this one Christmas present revolutionized medicine. A chiropractor gave him a book called Muscle Testing and Function by Kendall and Kendall. I bought the book back then. I don't know if I still have it in my collection, but it's the classic. It was these two physical therapists from Baltimore that had figured out how to muscle test each of the skeletal muscles. So Goodheart thought, well, that's nice, a book that, you know, tells you how to test muscles, but what do you do if it's weak? What do you have to do? Exercise it? And it doesn't make much of a difference to do muscle testing on people. But on this one guy, he did something that revolutionized everything. He said, I want you to hold your arm up. So he did the anterior serratus, which is holding the arm up like this and then pushing straight down. And he noticed that the side where the scapula protruded and he had the shoulder issue, he couldn't hold it. The other one was like a rock, could push down and it was fine. It held great. Well, Goodheart intuitively said, I'm going to just palpate the origin. You could do this on yourself right now. Oh, I've been doing a lot of push-ups, and this muscle's involved in push-ups. So at the origin insertion, and this is great for massage therapists when someone has a muscle out, as well as for athletes. This is great on athletes. So he's rubbing the origin of the anterior serratus along the ribs here. And again, you can kind of feel the muscle. If you reach up like this, it's the muscle that's got a serrated edge. You can see it on the muscle charts. And then he rubbed on the insertion. And he was just palpating it just to feel the muscle. And then he checked the muscle again, and it was immediately strong. And he was like, wow, I didn't know you can instantly strengthen a muscle. So that was the first technique, origin insertion technique. So there's times where, you know, for yourself, if you have an issue like, say, climbing stairs, or especially if you had a strain and a fall or an injury, you might have pulled the origin insertion of the muscle, either or both, away from the attachment to the bone. Goodheart called it a microevulsion, where it's like, oh, this is pulling slightly away from the bone. And I'll give you a story about this. I was working out in the gym with my trainer, and this guy came up to us, and he was overhearing us and how I was doing, you know, bench pressing and doing various weightlifting. And then I'd go so far, and then we'd switch on the muscles related to whatever exercise I was doing, and I would get a whole nother rep, like stronger, stronger, stronger. So I said, wow, so you guys seem to know what you're doing about this. He says, I've got this injury. He was a catcher. And he says, I've been in therapy for the last year, and my shoulder just isn't doing well, and I'm wondering if you could help me. Well, same muscle, his anterior serratus, I could see his scapula was protruding in the back. And so I said, hold your arm up, and it was very weak. So I rubbed the origin insertion. I also did the neurolymphatics. Let's do those now. It's the third and fourth rib space. So get under your clavicle. You feel that rib space? Go to the second one. Next, the third set of spaces, and the fourth. So rub there right now. So I'm rubbing on his neurolymphatics. Never worked on him more than 60 seconds from start to finish. Rubbed his origin insertion, rubbed the neurolymphatics, maybe 30 seconds each. He held the arm back up, and he's super strong. He goes, wow, that's great. 10 minutes later, he comes up to me in the gym, and he goes, this is amazing. I said, what's happening? His name was Brad Stevens. I remember his name. And he says, I've never done this in my life. Up until you worked on me, I could only bench 175 pounds. I just benched 250 pounds 5 times. Well, I got his number, and I talked to him 6 weeks later. He says, yeah, I've totally recovered. That was the only thing I did with him. Had no more treatment, no more follow-up. I mean, just ran into him in the gym. And now he said, yeah, I didn't need any more therapy. I'm back, playing as my position catcher, and I'm doing great. So sometimes you get lucky like that. And so origin insertion, really important technique. Well, so Goodhart said, I'm going to test people, and whenever an origin insertion, ever a muscle's weak, I'll rub the origin insertion. But it didn't always work. So the next thing he discovered is he had a man who had a problem where he couldn't even sleep at night with pain in his back. But he said, when I get up and walk, I notice then I get relief. And he's thinking, well, when you're walking, you are stimulating the lymphatic system. Now, the lymphatic system is your body's sewer system. So he's thinking, well, let me rub the tensor fasciae lata muscle, because that was around where his problem was. And so he's rubbing along the IT band. And you can try that right now along with me, because that's actually one of the points that are going to be related to the large intestine, which I had weak. So you're rubbing right along the IT band there. And in this case, and he was kind of rubbing back and forth, and the guy says, wow, after doing that, he says, Doc, that's the first relief I've gotten in months, just working on the IT band. Like that. And Goodhart thinks, I just need to rub the muscles, and that will help. Besides the origin insertion, I rub the belly of the muscle. However, it worked on that muscle, but not on other muscles. Well, the interesting thing is, he noticed from his studies that Chapman's reflexes, Dr. Frank Chapman, who studied back in the 20s and 30s and wrote a book about this, talked about these neurolymphatic points. These are neurological switches that activate the flow of lymph through the body. And he noticed that the large intestine had this line here on the iliotibial band was the neurolymphatic for the organ large intestine. That's when Goodhart discovered that every muscle in your body also relates to an organ. So he later discovered, when he looked at further points, and again, I explain this in my book, he found that the vascular points, neurovasculars, developed by Terence Bennett, chiropractor, also in the 30s, discovered these are reflexes you touch lightly. See, neurolymphatics you rub firmly, but these points are generally on the head, you touch them lightly, and he mapped out what organs get stimulated by touching these lightly to bring more blood flow. So we then have these points on the head that are also related to organs. So he mapped out this large intestine has a organ reflex for the neurolymphatics on the side of the body, on the side of the legs. The neurovasculars are at the parietal ridge, right about 4 fingers above the ear. That's specifically the neurovasculars for large intestine. Then he discovered the book by, I think it's Felix Mann. It's an acupuncture book. That it talks about these tonification and sedation points that activate a acupuncture meridian channel. And he found, if I stimulate the tonification, bringing energy into large intestine meridian, that also can strengthen muscles related to large intestine, etc., all the other muscles. So this was a really phenomenal chain of discoveries that really laid the foundation of applied kinesiology. and it's finding that structural imbalances are related to neurological blockages and energy imbalances. And by balancing the energy and the neurological switches, switching all the body on, the structure balances. So we're going to go through them now. And there was one question I'm going to touch on. I believe it was Kim asked, well, what if you got more than 2 points on the head that are testing out? I always do both. However, if you want to find a priority between the two, here's what you do. There's the priority mode. This is where you get change. Remember, a change is going to do you good. Whenever something changes from strong to weak or weak to strong, that's the priority. So let's just say, for example, I'm touching the glabella, and that's the wood element. So I'm touching wood element, and say I go back. I'll just demonstrate. And then I touch, let's say, metal element. And then, oh, I go back on metal. So then what I do is I can touch the middle finger to the priority mode and see which one changes. So let's say I go here and I go back. And then I touch here and I still go back. That's not a priority. It didn't change. Now I touch back here on metal and I go back. And let's just say I then touch the priority mode and I go forward, or I don't go back. It's changing. Usually it'd be actually going forward. So it says, that is the priority. Now, that's one way, but there's many other ways, especially this is if you're doing yourself, but if you're working on a person in actual session, or, friend comes over, I also balance my daughter. I balance anyone that comes in the door, In fact, your UPS guy is coming to deliver packages, man or woman, have them come in and balance them. They probably need it, right? Actually, I did that. I had a mailman come and he goes, hey, what's this kinesiology stuff? I see all these boxes coming for Kinesiology Institute. So I said, well, we help people relieve pain. He says, I've got back pain. Can you help me? So that's what this is all about, is help everyone that comes along. So back to priorities, you could also then locate in fact, let's do that right now. Whatever was the organ related to the head point you had, I want you to touch it, and I'm going to go in. I've done a little balancing now, but we're going to see. I'm going to touch the reflexes, the actual organ. I'm on the ascending colon, and I'm going back, okay? Then I'm on the transverse colon, not so bad there, and the descending colon. Not so bad there. It's often the ascending colon where there's more blockage, I find. Okay, so I'm going back there. Then I could also hold the priority mode if I want to see if it's a priority and see if it goes forward, and it does. Now, just to note, priority doesn't mean it's the priority over everything. Priority means it's okay. The body says it's okay to balance that now. So just to note, your body wants to be fixed in a certain sequence, and about 20% of the things you find out are priorities, and 80%, roughly, are compensations. Dr. Deal told me that if you only treat compensations, either they won't get fixed or they won't stay fixed. Think of it as an analogy like this. If you have a traffic jam, and you got a car and their truck in front of me isn't moving, I'm gonna honk the horn, get him going, come on, come on. Well, he may be backed up and there's 12 cars in front of him, and there's one car that stalled in the center of the road, and there's one lane, say it's a one-lane road, you can't even go around them, and now everybody's backed up. Well, there's only one car you really need to move, and then everyone else can move. Same way when we look at our energy flows. In our energy course, we get into all these different flows, and you'll see the closest over to an under, that's our formula. And when you bring that energy out of the over into the under, it goes, and then everything else that was downstream almost, in many cases everything, will then balance out. So you're always looking for what's the priority. It saves you 80% of your time. And that's the beauty of what we do in our approach, is we're really seeing what is it that is the source of the problem. So I had a question about, does rubbing one way or the other help constipation? Well, there's theories about that, but I don't think it really matters. You know, so here's one thing you can always do. You can say, well, let me rub one direction. I'm going to rub up like this, and then I'll muscle test. So I'm going to do the sway test, and that's going forward. And then I'll rub the other way and see if that goes forward too. It likes it either way. But whenever you want, and that's a great thing in massage too. If you say, well, should I massage the sacrospinalis in this direction or that direction? Or even like some people like, I've gone to massage therapists. I get a massage every week, by the way. I love massage, and that's how I got my start, but it's so great to get massages as often as possible. So I'll have some of these therapists I've gone to, they massage away from the heart, like deep friction away from the heart. Well, if you do that on someone and then test an indicator muscle, it will often go weak. If you go towards the heart, it generally goes strong. But there's cases, you know, like even in the points here, generally you're going out towards the shoulder when you're working the deep fascia here. And again, if you stroke one way and it goes strong, you stroke the other way, it goes weak. Well, literally, you want to rub the body the right way. Don't rub them the wrong way. And the body will tell you. Same thing with ice or heat. You say, I don't know whether I should put ice on or heat. Well, you can put a little, like say an ice pack and see if they're strong, and a heat pack and see if they go weak. Then you know, oh, they need ice. So the body tells you what it likes. You give it a stimulus and then you get the feedback. The biofeedback is what the muscle testing does. So I just basically note this though. Here's the interesting thing about the large intestine. I'm going to show this on the leg. Okay, so here is your say ascending colon, and here's the reflex for the beginning of the ascending colon. In fact, the ileocecal valve reflex is right up here. That's the bridge between the small and large intestine. So what I'm doing here is as I rub down this way, I'm going to a reflex that goes up the ascending colon. About halfway down the leg, now I'm going to the transverse colon. And then when I get to the middle, down here on the right above the knee, I'm in the middle here, and then it picks up here, and this is the reflex for the rest of the, going this way, the rest of the transverse colon, and then descending colon as you go up. So therefore, if I'm rubbing on someone, and this is often the case, I'll be rubbing along, you know, like, and find out, and they'll go, oh, I'm tender right there. And then I say, okay, that's right around here. And then I'll point in here, oh, it's funny, I am tender and I'm tender here too. So then I go, how is it there? I go, ah, yes. And so I'll keep working on that point. You can work on these too, and you can test yourself. Just if you want to be testing, you know, while we're going along, I want you participating. And so I'll go to that point and I'll work it. Now you're going to rub it like about, you know, 20 to 30 seconds. Sometimes I'll go all the way to a minute. Especially when you're doing work on the, we'll show later for the immune system, the thymus has a great reflex. You want to do like even 2 minutes to help people's immunity, which is real big right now. Okay, so that's feeling better. So I'm going to point, oh wow, yeah, see that cleared that tenderness. See, so these are reflexes, meaning it's a switch that affects another part of the body. That's what reflexes are. They're like light switches that make the lights turn on somewhere else. So in this case, to answer your question, as long as it's stimulated, the body knows what it wants to do with that stimulation. So let's look at the meridians now, and we're going to go through them. We're going to do the neurolymphatic, the neurovascular, and we're going to trace the meridian. So looking at this chart over here for central, so as you see right here, this is the chart, the wall chart, which the folio has each page. So central meridian, and it is, it says related to nighttime. It's more the yin aspect of the reservoir meridians. And so the neurolymphatics right here, these are great ones to do. They are like right inside the shoulder on the outside of the chest wall. So get your fingers in there right now. And so for me, I'm just taking my fingers like that. Oh, I'm glad we're having this class. I'm going to be feeling great by the end of the day. Yow. Now, sometimes the tenderness, because I'm doing a lot of push-ups, could be from just muscles being worked. But often, when you're doing a neurolymphatic point, and you'll find as you keep rubbing it with firm pressure, I've got the, the pads of my fingers here. And you can do both at the same time, but it's a little easier to have the muscle relax that you're working on rather than over. And then I'm going to get the other side. Now this is stimulating energy flow and lymphatic flow through the brain. Now lymphatic is again our sewer system, but it's also delivering nutrition, particularly fats, to cells. Fats are our main energy for endurance. We want to be burning fat to keep us in high energy, not just sugar, which is basically then gets us low blood sugar if we're doing too much sugar burning and not fat burning. Now the points in the back are like here. Go right under the skull. They're just at the top of the neck, right under the skull, and rub those right now. See how that feels. Okay, now we'll do the neurovascular points. There's 3 for these. The frontal eminences, which in the book, it's called point number 11 in the Touch for Health book. And that's the frontal eminences. So if you go above the eyebrow, you'll feel a little bump there. You're going to touch with, I touch 2 or 3 fingers and the thumb on the other side. And so I'm touching here. At the same time, you can touch the anterior fontanelle. Again, if you want to find that, put the heel of your hand here, and where the fingers end up, that is the anterior fontanelle. So you're going to breathe deeply as you do that, and that's just a light touch with a slight tugging up on the skin towards the apex of the head. And as I do that, getting more blood flow and oxygen to the brain. Okay, about 20 seconds on it. And then let's stroke up from basically the pubic bone. You're going to stroke up to right here. That's conception vessel 24. So again, pubic bone up the midline. You don't even have to touch the body, but you just lightly touch it or just be within an inch or two. And 2 or 3 times up there. So see how that feels. See how you feel after doing that. Now the governing meridian, that's the next one. We're going to look at the chart on that. Here's the governing. The governing meridian goes from the tip of the tailbone up the spinous process, right on the midline, and it comes down just below the nose on the above the upper lip, and that's governing vessel 27. So a little hard to rub or to stroke the meridian by yourself, but you can kind of go up as far as you can and then come around the head. And then the neurolymphatic points are right here, about 2 inches, 1.5 inches, 2 inches out from the sternum, a little wider than right at the actual sternum, and in the back at T23. Now, if you can rub some of these in the back, fine, but I use the roller ball I got, where I rub these often on myself. I lie on the rubber roller ball. I'll demonstrate that later, and it's so great to get all the neurolymphatics. Okay, and then your vascular point is right in front of the ear here. So we'll do those now. And just to note, if you wanted to, you could self-test this. Like I could touch here on, say, governing 27, and that's an indication that you would need to stroke a meridian if you get a weakness. Okay, that's fine on me. I could also touch the vasculars, see what happens there. So they're right just in front of the eyes, right there. Just actually more like in front of the ears, a little further back, closer to the ears than the eyes, but they're right between the two. And doing okay there. And then I could also touch the neurolymphatics and see if those are tending. Okay, those I'm getting a weakness. So that's saying, yeah, they need to be worked. So if you're doing self-testing, again, you could just rub them. It doesn't have a problem to just rub them. And that's often what I do is I don't test every point. I just go through and see, hey, is it tender? And see how yours is. Boy, mine is really tender on the left side. If you guys do, anybody do EFT, we cover those techniques in my psychological course. And they call this often the tender point, which you're doing in psychological reversals, particularly on the left. So that's a great point. And it happens to be the same point as the governing meridian, which in another technique we do, the magnet technique, Bradley Nelson covers that. You're going right down the governing meridian with a magnet. And so that often relates to psychological issues. Okay, that's feeling better. So you're rubbing there. And then if you can, rub in the back. Again, that's about where you can reach down near the top of the scapula, right off the spine. That's your T2 in the back. Okay, and then the vasculars, again, we're going to touch right here and slightly tug up, just in front of the ears, here, right there, and touching right up. It's just above the zygomatic arch, the cheekbone area there. So touching there lightly. And then you're going to stroke up from the tip of the tailbone as far up and catch it where you can, and you're coming right down to the above the upper lip right there. That's governing 27. Okay. Now you can also do this. If you can't stroke the whole meridian, you could touch the tip of the tailbone, governing 1, and governing 27, and just hold them. And then you might even feel or visualize energy flowing between the two. Okay, the next one is the stomach meridian. The stomach meridian also relates to the sinuses as well as the stomach. And all these different muscles that are shown in each chart, these are covered in our structural. All of the additional muscles we cover in my structural course, which I'll mention, by the way, we're having a renewal from popular demand of our Black Friday Cyber Monday sales. So if you still want to get in on that, you can get in on the discounts. We'll talk about that later. But this is what's on the chart here. So you'll see, like, they'll show a muscle test, and they'll show the neurovasculars for that muscle, such as this one here is the pectoralis major clavicular. That's the main one we test. And there's the picture of the muscle. See, it's color-coded. And then there's your neurolymphatics. And then we have the neck muscles, which are shown here. Those are related to sinuses. And it shows the reflexes for those are here, kind of close to where the last one was for teres major and governing. And then here is another set of vascular points. So you've got all the information for the stomach meridian and associated muscles, including the acupressure holding points. We cover that in our energy course, what to do when with that. So the neurolymphatic we're going to work right now is on the left side where the breast meets the chest wall. This is real common that I find out on people. Say if someone has H. pylori or deficiency of hydrochloric acid, one of the most common deficiencies of all. That's a great neurolymphatic. We're going to rub that. We're going to touch lightly on the frontal eminences here. And then we're also going to stroke the meridian, which is from just below the eye, makes a circle, goes down to the front of the body and down to the second toe. So think of stomach, second. That's how I remember where it goes to. SS. Okay? Okay, so everyone go along with me. We're going to get the left 5-6, so go under where the breast meets the chest wall. For men, if you find the nipple, it's the space right under the nipple. For women, kind of go up under the breast and get your thumbs in that rib space or fingers. Okay, so it starts right at the sternum and it goes out. Now, while we're at it, go ahead and rub the right one, and this is for liver and gallbladder. So the right 5-6 will kind of move those both. Oh, yeah. I'm finding a tender spot. So if you find a tender spot, just work it a little longer. Again, work along with me. And, oh boy, my stomach one's showing a lot more. My liver's actually good. I've been doing a lot of liver cleansing lately with herbs and different things that support that. Okay, so keep working your way out, and those are the neural lymphatics. We'll skip the ones in the back, but these would be 5-6 between the 5th and 6th thoracic, which is about halfway from the top and the bottom of the scapula, just off of the spine, between the 5th and 6th thoracics. Okay, now we'll do the neurovasculars. Okay, so while we're doing stomach, which is frontal eminences, we already did that for the last muscle or the first one we covered, which was the supraspinatus for central. We're also going to go just above that, and these are the vasculars for the liver. It's just up and out from the ones, so you can actually do them both at the same time. I got 2 fingers on the liver, 2 fingers on the stomach meridian. neurovasculars, so it's okay to do multiple points at once. Now in the course, I think it's class 4, we do a whole cycle for the neurovasculars. In class 3, we do a whole cycle where you rub all of them in a sequence for the neurolymphatics. One of my students was working with a world-class tennis player, and the main thing he did with her before matches was he switched on all her neurolymphatic points. And the match, after he learned this from me, he started working with her, and the match she ended up winning was called the French Open, and it completed her Grand Slam. So she was never able to win that, but she'd won all the 4 major tennis tournaments. And I was watching at the award ceremony, and she personally thanked him for the great job that he had done taking care of her body to get her to win the French Open. And he mainly did rubbing all the neurolymphatic points before every match. So it's a great thing to do for you that are especially massage therapists. Include that in your massage work, which in the fundamentals class right now, it's class 13. I've got to do the meridian. Okay, so we're going to cover right under the eye. That's stomach 1, one of the most important acupressure points. And you don't have to touch. You can go right over the skin or just lightly touching it. Make a circle around the face and go right down over the eyes, down the neck muscles. So then it goes fanning out at the scapula and goes down right over the nipple line. You don't have to touch. Again, you can do right over the skin. And as you get to the ribs, go in just a little bit and go right along the line of the rectus abdominis, the 6-pack muscle. When you get to the pubic bone, go out a little further, and then you're going to go outside the knee. This is because yang meridians, which the stomach is one, goes outside the knee or behind the knee, yin or inside. Now, by the way, there's a really key point right down under the outside of the knee. That's stomach 36. That's another really key acupressure point. And then just go down to your second toe, the lateral side of the second toe nail, that's stomach. Now, while we're down there, that's stomach 45, we're going to go to the inside corner of the big toe and come up spleen. That is coming up the inside of the knee from the inside point there and goes up to the shoulder and then drops down on the shoulder and goes right here about the level of the tip of your breastbone. It's another key acupressure point, spleen 21. Okay, so let's look over at our other chart now, and we'll see the reflexes. We already did the meridian there, just so you can see the spleen meridian. Again, it's at the inside of the big toenail, right at the corner there, and going up the inside of the leg, and goes going out to the shoulder, just under the shoulder, and drops down on both sides. These are all bilateral meridians. Only midline are central and governing, but these are bilateral, all the meridians. So you're doing both sides, and you can do them both at the same time. Now, the neurolymphatic for all the spleen muscles is between 7 and 8, and I'll show you how you find that. Also 7 and 8 on the back, which, again, we're not going to rub those right now. And then the light touch points, you got 2 sets. One is right above the ear, and that would be for latissimus dorsi, related to pancreas and pancreatic enzymes, along with insulin production. And then you got back here, that is point number 3, which is just above the anterior fontanelle. So let's do that. We're going to rub now 7, 8, and here's how you find it. If you go down from the left nipple and you hit the abdomen, then you go up and out on the left side, because the spleen and pancreas, the 2 organs are related to the spleen meridian, and rub there. Now this is probably one of the most commonly weak muscles is latissimus dorsi, because we eat so much sugar. Well, maybe you and I don't, but most Americans eat too much sugar. I've almost totally eliminated it from my diet, and boy, has it helped. I've lost probably close to 10 pounds now, going wheat-free, dairy-free, and as much as possible sugar-free. I do have a little stevia that I muscle test well on sometimes. And so then the vasculars. So we're going to touch here right above the ear. That's point number 9, touching lightly. And then we've got the point in the back. If you find your anterior fontanelle, posterior fontanelle, go just above that, and there's that. So we're touching those. Now, just to note, when I see Dr. Deal work in his office, he will often do this. He'll work on the neurolymphatic while he's touching the neurovascular. He'll do them both together. And he finds he gets exponential results, and he just does them both at the same time. So then I'll go over here and do that. So you can do it that way too. Okay, and then meridian we already did. So let's go to our next one. That will be heart. Okay, so on the chart here, you'll see the heart meridian. And by the way, these times are when that meridian is at its peak. So for some of you, you might be peaking in heart time right now. Some of you may be over, well, we have people from all over the world on this. So wherever you're at, just note that if you have a symptom at a certain time of day, it often relates to that meridian that's at its peak at that time, or it can be the opposite where it's at its low end. Now, here's the neurolymphatics are between 2 and 3, the ribs 2 and 3, right off the sternum. The meridian is going from the armpit to the pinky. So think of pit to pinky. And then the neurovascular is also right here, the anterior fontanelle. So let's go ahead and rub the neurolymphatics there. So second rib space, rub there. And if it's tender, keep working it. Mine's doing fine. Here's another tip. If people are really tender on like all their neurolymphatics, especially in the sternal area here, it's often related to low thyroid. Okay, then I'm going to do my vascular, back to anterior fontanelle. Just feel that flat spot. Let's see, I can do it this way. There it is. Okay, and now the meridian, you could stroke one while you're touching the point. It's going from right in the pit of the armpit, and it's going up the palmar side of the arm, right in here, the little finger to the ring finger side of the fingernail. So that's where it ends. So it's going from pit up the outside, the ulnar side of the forearm to the pinky. So do that 3 times. I'll do the other one 3 times. Great. Now we're here. Let's go on to the next meridian, and then it's going to be the small intestine. So where the heart leaves off, small intestine picks up on the outside, lateral side of the base of the little fingernail. So that's small intestine 1, and it goes on the side, the outside, on the ulnar side of the forearm. Then it goes to the shoulder blade. It drops down on the shoulder blade a little bit, and it comes up onto the point right in front of the ear. Small intestine 19, for what that's worth. And so you're rubbing from the back, on the back of the arm, from the little finger, ulnar side. You drop down on the shoulder a little bit if you want to be most complete. It's only essential to come within 2 inches. So do that and see how that feels. So you're getting energy flowing. If there's blockage along these meridian pathways that we're working, you are helping to clear that out. And you can even work it quickly. Now, I'll mention this, that sometimes if there's pain in an area, you don't have to touch the arm, but you can just stroke along where the pain is, and it will go away. I've seen that, I mentioned that in my book, how I slammed my middle finger in a car door once. Excruciating pain. So what I did is I just stroked like that, without touching it, of course, and within 30 seconds, it went from searing, scream your head off pain to didn't hurt at all. I was like, oh my God. So then I went to the emergency urgent care place, and they go, oh yeah, you broke your finger. So they put it in a splint, which then it hurt again, but I was again able to work it down. Now here's the beauty of also working meridian points, and we do that much more in the energy course, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But this, when you're getting energy flowing, not only does it relieve pain, but it helps the body to heal itself. Because the body uses energy to heal itself, and if energy is blocked, it can't heal itself adequately. So that's what's really great about this, is you're able to, doing all these techniques, not only alleviates pain, but it helps the body to heal itself. Okay, so that was the heart, let's see, heart, and then we did small intestine. So now let's do neurolymphatics for small intestine. Let's look at the chart again for all of you here. If we look here, small intestine is right here, and this meridian is its peak between 1 and 3. I find this is commonly out on people, particularly with conditions like leaky gut, SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. We've got candida, parasites, our biome being out of balance. So this is one of the most important organs I find to balance on people, especially in today's day and age. Interestingly, I'll show this later in the course. You know the Perel, which is it's actually out of Akron, Ohio, and I know the girl who now is the the CEO of the company. I knew her since she was 3 years old, and Perel actually destroys the healthy bacteria in your gut. So what we want to do is make sure we have a non-toxic hand cleaner, which I use Thieves by Young Living. So here's the neurolymphatics. They're on the underneath side of the ribs, and we're going to do those. These are great points to do. Goodhart told me if you get sleepy after eating, it's often 1.5 inches out from the tip of the breastbone that is the one point that will often help that. And sure enough, I would always get sleepy after eating. And in his course, I started working that, and over a few weeks, it got less tender, and then it never happened again. It was like, you know, rarely now. Well, there are times. Now, if you eat bad food, you're going to get sleepy after eating, but that was really what helped clear that. Now, you have neurolymphatics also on the inside of the legs here, but these are the ones we're going to work today. And then the vasculars are the same as large intestine up here, as well as meridian circulation sex. So let's do those now. And we just trace the meridian, which again, you'll see goes from the little finger on the back side, the ulnar side, the back of the arm, makes a little jog on the shoulder blade and comes back up and goes to the face and then right back to just in front of the ear. Okay, so let's go back under here. So this is the underneath side of the ribs. And I find these are one of my favorite points to do, especially in the morning. Oh yeah, and after eating as well. It's great to do after eating. So, and I do the stomach points often after eating as well. The stomach neurolymphatics. So just work, you're pushing up on the underneath side, so do that as we're talking here. And if you got a tender spot, you can stay on it longer. I'm pleased to say mine are pretty good right now. Okay, excellent. You can rub this way as well. Okay, and then the neurovasculars at the parietal ridge. Just breathing deeply. Remember, whenever you're working points, it's great to do deep breathing, especially meridian points. And if you're working on someone else, have them breathe deeply too. That gets more energy flow. And there you go. Just to remind you, as far as rubbing the neurolymphatics, yeah, you would rub if you're saying, well, should I rub this way or that way, which I generally don't even check. As long as I'm rubbing circles a little bit and working my way up, and it's fine either way, really, on that. But if there's some way where you stroke one way and it's strong and you stroke another way and it's weak, you always work the way it strengthens. Yes, Kim, that poster that you see, you can order it on our website, kinesiologyinstitute.com. And there's a, I don't know if it's called products or shop menu. Oh, he's going to send the link. There's a products menu, and you click on that, and he's going to post the link. And then in there, you'll see the products, and there's one that says books and charts. And so if you order that through there, you'll get it. Okay? Now, the point Goodhart mentioned for sleepy after eating is about 1.5 inches out. It's a little, you know, what is that, about a little over a centimeter for you in the outside the US. And it's particularly on the right. So find your xiphoid process and go out, a little bit out on the right, and it's for the duodenum. See, it's so great to study with Goodhart. You know, he was amazing. The guy was a genius, and he was tapped in to information that's beyond the mind. He would always say, when he'd find something, he'd say, why is that? So Dr. Deal would ask Dr. Goodhart, Dr. Goodhart, how do you figure all this out? And he told Dr. Deal, he said, I have a little man sitting on my shoulder telling me things. So in other words, he was intuitively tapped in to information that goes beyond the ego mind. And that's why I meditate every day. I meditate and things, just the right things come to me. I so much want you to get out of your, as much as possible, get out of your reactive mind, your beta consciousness of trying to figure everything out, and say, infinite wisdom, universal intelligence, lead me to the right information, the right answer. And often your life just gets directed in this divine flow where you just meet the right people at the right time. And you probably can relate to that. It's something we cover more in our psychological course of how you can create the law of attraction and everything just falls into place. Okay, there's a question about tips for arthritis. Well, remember that itises are inflammation. So Goodhart said often it's where there's a muscle imbalance that we get inflammation. So you always want to balance the muscles. Again, we cover that a lot in the structural course, as well as the advanced courses of the energy. We cover one muscle for each meridian. And then we cover in biochemical, one muscle for each organ. So you get a deeper understanding of that. Again, I'll see if I can demonstrate some of that later in our class today. But you want to balance energy, you want to balance muscles. But there's basically three primary things that cause inflammation. One is foods and food sensitivities. That's why we do food testing. We'll cover that yet today. When you're doing in self-testing foods, when you find foods that you test weak on, they are irritants to your system and they cause inflammation. Now, another thing that causes inflammation is imbalances in the microbiome, which would be like too much bad bacteria, like small intestine bacterial overgrowth, and not enough good bacteria, like your bifidus, your acidophilus, and your probiotics. Another thing is lack of essential fatty acids. That's omega-3s. Omega-3s are natural anti-inflammatories. Give you an example of like fish oils. I think it was Dr. Deal who was talking to me about if someone had like a really bad, I think it was even a brain tumor they had. And he said, oh, have flaxseed, take 2 or 3 tablespoons of flaxseed oil every day and it can reduce the tumor. Now, it wasn't a cancerous tumor, but he said that would be a great way to reduce it. So also, I had joint inflammation where I had a frozen shoulder and a knee that was in huge pain. And I was back in my marathon and triathlon days. And I go, God, I can't do the race. So I went on an alkaline diet. Alkaline is non-acidic. Acid foods are inflammatory. Just think, if you get acid on your hands, it burns it, right? So I got on an alkaline cleanse and totally got rid of my joint inflammation. 2 days, my knee pain went away. 3 days, I was doing like only alkalizing foods, which are basically your plant-based things you get out of the garden. You know, your broccoli, your kale, your cauliflower, fibrous vegetables, which also help liver detox because the toxic liver creates inflammation. So you're wanting to detox and alkalize, and the omega-3s help. And then there is a fourth thing, is toxic thoughts. When you're worrying, that can be the most acidifying thing of all. So that's why today, with all this, fear and panic and all that going on, you want to focus on gratitude. You want to focus on the things that make you feel good and focusing on your loving relationships where you feel love, where you feel gratitude and faith and hope and trust. Those are the things that are good for arthritis, okay? Great. We're going to take another break and we'll come back at the top of the hour. So until then, be well, and I'll look forward to seeing you. And we're going to pick up at where we left off, going into the bladder meridian and balancing that. See you then. Thanks for watching this video, and be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more great content. And be sure to check out kinesiologyinstitute.com, where you can see all the courses we offer, both online as well as in person, to really advance your skills. Until then, God bless and be well.